Greetings, scholars. Welcome back to the exciting video lecture series for Mark 4433, Social Media Marketing, featuring the integral tool of a textbook by Tootin and Solomon, 3rd edition, Social Media Marketing. This chapter talks about social media metrics. I save it toward the end. It's one of the things that I would like for you to leave with, or at least be fresh on your mind as you finish the course, because it's one of the more important topics, I feel. So with that said, if anybody tells you in business or your workplace or in the classroom that something is important, then that means they should be measuring it. If someone says something's important, but they don't measure it, it's really not that important, because the old phrase, what matters is measured, is important in business and has applicability here as we talk about social media metrics, because the ultimate goal of a social media marketing campaign is the highest and ultimate measurement would be, did it help our business? Did our sales go up? But we'll get there in a minute. But typically, what we do is we measure some things. My rule of thumb is 2 KPIs are okay, but not very impressive. If you measure 8 KPIs, it gets confusing when you report it to somebody. 3 KPIs is good, minimum. 4, I think it's better. It's easy to digest. So what are some key performance indicators that might be important to a social media marketing manager or employee, someone who deals in that area? This slide mentions a few. Reach, the number of people exposed to a message, whether they read it or not. Frequency, the number of times you hit someone with the message. The stickiness of a site. That's the ability to bring people to your site and keep them on the site. Now, that becomes a little more difficult to measure if someone comes to your site and then they just open another tab because they're doing something else and it looks like they're still in your site. But some metrics are harder to define and measure than our others. And that's one of them. Click-throughs, it's pretty easy to measure. That's the people who see an online ad and actually click on it. Did they click through and purchase the product? That would obviously be, out of these, the most important KPI, because if no one's clicking through to buy, then you're going to need to adjust and do something else. So staying on that topic of what matters is measured, let's talk about something, and I want to say this slide is messed up on the left side only because I imported it into Collaborator. It's correct in the slide deck, you'll notice when I post them. But let's talk about inventory turnover. If you, during the capstone course in the College of Business, you're more likely going to assess a company or a suite of companies, and if you remember from accounting 1 or 2, I don't know where they do it, but learning ratios, quick ratio and all those ratios. Inventory turnover is one of them. Typically I teach in an accounting class. If not, you run across it in the capstone School of Business course, the strategy courses. But anyway, inventory turnover that's a ratio saying how many times a company has sold and replaced their inventory during a given period, a month or a year. And that's how many times they brought inventory in and sold it out. Now, you would obviously think you'd want to sell your inventory more than once per year, but is 2 good? If you sell all the inventory you bought twice, is 4 too much? Or is that better than 2? Well, in isolation, an inventory turnover ratio number doesn't mean a lot. However, if your target and you put it in the context of Walmart, and if we look at this slide, you can see Walmart is averaging a little over 8 times a year that they turn their inventory. In other words, every item in the store, just for a picture in your mind, is sold 8 times. They order it, they sell it, they order it, they sell it 8 times during the year. So if we're Target, and we know that's Walmart's inventory turnover ratio, then all of a sudden now 2 doesn't look so good, right? So if Walmart is 8, maybe Target wants to be 100. Well, no, because you could easily get a turnover level of 100. Let's say you were an auto parts store and you stocked 1 can of oil and you sold it, then you got another one and you sold it. You could have your inventory ratio could be 300, let's say, or 250. However, you're not measuring the lost sales that you had on everything else because you're only carrying 1 can of oil. So you're keeping your inventory low so that your inventory turnover number can be outstanding, but that's not good for business. So that's the difference between numbers and metrics. So for example, 4,231 is a measurement. But in no context, what does it mean? Not a lot. But if you compare it to your earnings, let's say from last month, and your last month earnings were $1,000, all of a sudden now it becomes a metric and it becomes meaningful, right? It's important to you. You say, what did I do this month? I didn't do last month, because that is awesome. I want to do it again, right? And you can continue doing that. So numbers versus metrics. That's just an example. We're going to be talking about social media metrics. So what kind of metrics do social media marketers use or measure? Well, you can see this is a chart from the text. In the number 1 position, views or impressions. That's pretty easy to measure, right? Even on your own personal social media pages, on most of them, you can see, if you look at the dashboard, you can see how many views. If you have a business level, impressions. Click-through rates, you can measure that. If you're in an ad program, they will furnish you with that because that's how they charge you. So that's a metric that is easily found. Brand sentiment. How do we find that? Well, we could have a software tool that measures, through AI and algorithms, the overall sentiment of the comments said about your brand on a certain platform or across the internet. See, that's a lot lower. So you can almost see the easier to measure are used, and the harder to measure aren't used as much for various reasons, different reasons. The goal, though, is to move away from qualitative things to quantitative things, or this slide calls it fuzzy measurement, toward quantifiable metrics. But you can see if it's quantifiable, then you can actually get some figures, you can adjust it. Or if something's really working, you can do it again and again and again and again and get it better. But if you don't know what it is, you say, well, what are we measuring? We're measuring sentiment. So what does that mean? Well, I think that's pretty good. Well, thinking something's good and being able to measure it, knowing something's good, are two different things. And if you're working in a marketing operation, then you've got a budget line that's assessed to you. So if the employer is going to pay a salary, expenses, and advertising expenses on social media, they're going to want to know, is it working? So think of it that way. How do you explain to somebody that your social media program is working? You've got to measure something, report it, preferably over time, month to month to month to month, or quarter to quarter. So if you remember the, you could Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or the, they call it the marketing funnel. We can call it the consumer purchase journey that you remember from prior chapter here, and of course, principles of marketing. So our social marketing sales funnel, they start with awareness. And you see that's the widest part of the funnel. Did people see it? Did anybody mention it? How many people did it reach? Then you move down, did they spend time with the content? So it reached them, and then they spent a little time with it. That's better. Now we're getting somewhere. They watched the video all the way to the end. They didn't abandon it. Right? We can measure that. And that would move them down to preference. From the classic consumer purchase model, we call that getting into a consideration set. They've put your firm in a consideration set of 2, 3, or 4, from which, let's say there's 50 total in the universe. They've called it down to 4, and now we might be there. So, how do we know that? Well, did they share our video? Did they comment on it? Maybe they filled out a form online that they want to receive our monthly emails, or subscribe to Twitter, our Twitter platform. And then in the 4th stage, purchase. And that's what we want. Did they buy our service or good? Right? So we measure that. Have our recent sales since we started the social media marketing program, has our average sale gone up, let's say, or did we used to get 100 new customers a month, and since we started, now we're getting 200. How much of that can we attribute to the social media program? Loyalty. Do they stay with us over time? Did they sign up to air conditioning filters every month? Or did they buy it once and not buy again? Or, subscription toilets, after 2 months, did they cancel? Or something like that. And then down at the bottom, you have advocacy, where you created some evangelists. They're really into it. They created their own blog site about your product, where they talk with other people about it and how much they love it. Right? They've joined a social community for your razor blade subscription service, and they're recommending it. Maybe they even make user-generated comment. Maybe just with written, typed up reviews, or maybe they generate videos about how much they dig the product. Right? So after they buy, can we measure how loyal they are and whether they are really influencing others and advocating for our good or project? And boy, that's where you'd like to be. So you can see this engagement food chain at the bottom. Somebody saw something. They saw a story, they saw an ad, whatever. Then we move up a little bit. They saw a story about us, and they put some kind of rating in there that they really liked it. They liked the meal at that restaurant. It was good. It was so good that they did it twice or 3 times, right? Then you move up the chain, you can see they purchased, but then even more important, they spread a little electronic word of mouth. they recommended our restaurant on their, let's say, for example, our own social media sites. So it goes from saw to recommended. And you like to, for example, if you just start a social media marketing program, you want to move from saw to recommended. Now, how long does that take? Generally, a while. What's a while? Who knows? Takes more than a day or two, though. But that's the journey that you want to be on with a social media marketing campaign. So this is just a recap of the previous slide of engagement. So we can measure involvement with the metric of our page or profile visits. They go up, did they go down? Our content views, did they go up, did they go down? Interaction, that's somebody doing something while they're on our page or on our post. Did they watch the whole video? How much time did they spend on each post? How many comments did we get this month compared to last month? How many likes did we get this month compared to last month? How many shares? And then it moves down to intimacy. Ooh, isn't that racy? And we can measure that by sentiment. So we can, positive comments, negative comments, complaints. They made a meme about us that was bad. They made a meme about us that was good. And then influence. So the number of recommendations in word of mouth communication, because an influencer really got excited about our good or service. Somebody used it, and let's say they have a lot of followers on TikTok, and they made a TikTok about using our weed eater, and they keep making them, and they like it. So you can see, so that's the 4 engagement dimensions that the authors talk about, from involvement to influence. So we have a social media campaign of sorts for the Right School of Business that we started last year. And this particular chart is made each month. This one in particular by the Canva Pro. I believe this one is Tara Bingham. But this is just an example. You see them posted around the Right School of Business, or you would if you were there. So you can see what we've decided to measure for each platform. So for Instagram, we report interactions, reach, and impressions. So, and you can see we define those because we're providing this to and that way she knows what each of these means. For Facebook, we've got engagement with posts. And you can see we define the number of people who liked, commented, or shared a post. In October 2019 was 950. And then we've got the reach, which is a broader term. 5,400 people saw it. Whether they sucked it in or not, we don't really know. And 82 people visited our profile. So they went one step more. They looked at it and went, hey, let me look at the profile of this outfit. And then LinkedIn. You can see we report the number of people who found us in a search. That's an important metric. 35 people were searching for us, perhaps incoming freshman students, right? 2,600 times our posts were shown to people. It appeared in their feeds. You know whether they looked at it, read it, or not. But we do know that 107 people visit our profile. So either because they saw an ad and they said, let me look over here, or they just said they rode by or they saw our material somewhere and they said, I wonder if they're on LinkedIn. And we are. So they went and looked at our profile. So this is just an example, and we provide more information to the dean. But this is just to show what we do, what our results are month by month. And those are the KPIs that we decided that were understandable and were good metrics to show and for us to look at month to month to see if we're doing better, doing worse. And then we look at our most popular posts and say, what were they? Did they involve a dog? Have more posts that involve a dog. Did they involve a ferret? We need to have more posts that involve ferrets. Anyway, then we can make adjustments and do it again, hopefully do it better. So one last time, measurements within a defined context become metrics. Feedback is the usefulness of those. You want metrics that are tied to objectives. And those become KPIs. So if your objective is, and I'm going to go back one slide. Let's say if our objective is awareness, right? Then these become important, right? We could report all those in aggregate if you want to, or one at a time. If it's awareness, if it's engagement, how many times do people actively engage with our content? Then this would be important. So if they're tied to objectives, they become KPIs. And the objectives have to be well defined so that you can match up some measurements, some KPIs to it. So our objective is A, and these are the 2 or 3 KPIs that we're going to use to see whether we are achieving A, right? So the authors put forth what they call the data approach. We're going to have 2 acronyms here coming up. One is DATA. The second one you've seen before. I'll save it as a surprise. So define the results that the program to promote, right? And so our program with the Right School of Business is awareness. But if you were a little more established, maybe it would be interactions with the brand and purchases or whatever it is. The first A is assess. You have to assess the cost of the program and the value of the results, or the ROI. Because if money's being allotted to you or your department, then you got to show something for it. All right? And you remember the 5 functions of management. And the last one is controlling. Right? And so that falls into the assess category. Track it and link those results to the program. In previous slides, I showed you about the Right School of Business. Right? If something's working well, do more of it. If something's not working good, do less of it. If you don't adjust the program, you just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over, well, what good is that? The beauty of it is that you can change on the fly and make things better if you keep track of things. If you don't measure it, it's not important. So you see, defining the objectives, you can motivate. You can just want to motivate your target audience to do something. You want to motivate them to sign up for a newsletter or to sign up for text alerts when they have toilet paper or whatever. You want to influence brand knowledge. You want them to know about your brand, what it does, and attitudes. And accomplish the first 2 with fewer resources than might be required with other methods. So if we can get the first 2 items taken care of for $1,000 less than we were before by using billboards and local newspaper circulars, then we've saved money and we're more efficient. And that's the trick. Spend as little money as possible to get the greatest results that you can. So this is a figure from the text as well. Social media ROI pyramid, return on investment. So this is just a pictorial representation. You can see at the business level at the top, let's say the bosses, what they want to know is, how is the campaign meeting our objectives? And our objectives could be more sales. So is it generating any revenue? Is it costing us, let's say our revenue is going up and it's costing us less than it was. So we would have accomplished both of those objectives. They're not interested in the nitty gritty of how often you're posting or what you're doing, just is it working? And then down one level, the marketing level, you want to see whether are we contributing to what it is the bosses want us to be doing. So how can we measure that? Well, how much is it costing us to convert a customer? How many customers are clicking through and buying? Hopefully more. How many leads are we able to generate and move over to our sales force, which would be under marketing, but as we know, marketing is not just sales. And then down in the trenches where the social media people are working, they're looking at all these, right? How many impressions did we get? Their objective might be to get as many impressions as possible because they have seen that the more impressions they get, the less it costs per impression, and it results in more leads because they have some historical data. Or the more comments they can get on the website or the blog site or the Google business site, the more positive ones they get, that leads to people a higher conversion rate or whatever. So you can see they have different objectives at every level, and from the bottom to the top. And this is what the authors call the social media ROI pyramid. So our next acronym, it's acronym heavy, is SMART. Now you've had this in probably 3 or 4 classes by now. It's a little goofy. However, like a SWOT analysis, I find it useful. I always have. Whenever I'm thinking about, an objective I have for a group or a class or myself personally. Is it specific? Can I measure it? Some objectives I have, or you may have, are not measurable. If that's the case, then you need to find another one. Everything is not measurable. So if you can't measure a great idea, working or not, is it achievable? Not too easy to achieve. Not so hard nobody in the world could ever achieve it, but somewhere in a sweet spot in the middle. It's like if you had sales of X amount in 2020, and the boss says, well, we'd like to see 10% increase in sales. Okay, well, that's achievable, generally. If they say, well, we'd like your sales to double. Well, that's a little different, unless they've expanded your territory or now you're selling a much more expensive product. Anyway, so is the objective relevant? Does it matter? If our objective for the Right School of Business social media program is to improve the awareness of a 5-county area that we exist as an AACSB accredited business school, that's relevant, because the more people that know about it, the more people will investigate. Then it'll be our job to close them and have them become students at Dalton State and the Right School of Business. And the last acronym letter, T, that completes SMART, is time-based. You should always put a time limit on everything. So in 1 year from today, I would like to see our whatever our impressions improve by 300%. Or next year, I would like to see enrollment increase. That should be a benefit of our program, or whatever it is. If you don't put a time limit on things, people generally don't do it. Or it's hard to measure it because you say, well, when did we start doing this? Well, I don't know. Well, how often have we measured it? Oh, well, I don't know. And then it's not a SMART objective. See what I did there? So, just some examples. Our primary objective for our social media marketing campaign for the School of Business, which we had 0 social media marketing presence before this began, our program began, so it's about not quite 2 years now, was to increase awareness. Therefore, as you saw earlier, we measure these depending on the platform, right? So that's it. We measure month over month to see if we are improving, getting more or less. And that's our main objective. Now, if we were another company, let's say Walmart, and they get a lot of bad press, their goal may be they want to improve the brand sentiment. So they might attribute a score to it. Let's say that last year their brand sentiment was 75% positive. So they say, well, this year, because we would like to change these other things that we're doing, and we would like our sentiment score to be 80%, 86% or higher. And that would be an example of a measurable objective and a metric they could use to see if they were accomplishing it. These are just some common social media metrics. You can see if other sites talk about us. That's earned media we didn't have to pay for, right? If we increase our followers, that'd be a good metric. You can see engagement. So our comments went up year over year or month over month. We had a contest submission where people could submit videos on how they use our product. And last year we got 1. This year we got 40. Well, we did something right. So this is just a table of metrics that are commonly used. We've talked about traffic, clicks, conversions. How many people actually clicked through and purchased? Great metric. And your people who clicked through your Instagram ad converted and purchased. That's very positive. So elements of the social media marketing metrics matrix. Say that 3 times real fast. So you got activity metrics. How often are you posting? When? Are you posting weekly, daily? Or do you want to post 6 times daily? Or once a week? Or what it is? You would measure your activity. Interaction. How many times do people engage with your posts? And hopefully they're in your target market, but anybody that engages with your posts would be good. And then return metrics. Ultimately, what we want are sales, click-throughs, and conversions. So if that was an outcome, that'd be one. If that's the outcome, the objective that you wanted, that's what you would want to measure. If your outcome is how many people you polled to see the awareness of your product 1 year, and you did it again the next year, and it went up, and your objective was awareness, then you would be accomplishing those. If not, you need to adjust. So you can see this is another slide that's in the text in chapter 11. they give some measurements. So for activity, number of posts, right? Obviously, interaction, how many people registered for your newsletter or your website? How many visits did you get? How many views did your post get? Those would be good interaction metrics. And then performance, pretty easy. How many leads did you convert? Customer lifetime value is how much a customer returns, how much they're worth to you over their lifetime. And of course, return on investment. How much did we spend? How much did we get back? Those are quantitative measures. Qualitatively, you could measure it by, are people satisfied? Right? If your goal was to improve customer satisfaction or receive a better positive sentiment score, like the example I used earlier, Walmart, trying to improve their customer sentiment, then that would be a good qualitative measure, customer satisfaction. Step 2, assess. So obviously, we talked about the ROI pyramid earlier, but assess the value generated. Is it doing what you're wanting it to do based on your objectives? If depending on what your objectives are, ours at Right School of Business is awareness. Are we getting more interactions with our posts? Are we gaining more followers? Then we can use that as a proxy for people are more aware of our School of Business. Track, step 3, and there are different tracking mechanisms you can use. Google Analytics, and you can check transaction data. Are our transactions going up? Are they going up in volume? Are they going up in average value? Maybe they're going down. We could look at cyclical patterns. But remember, what matters is measured, and you need to track it so that you can adjust on the fly. More, especially with social media, once a year is not going to do it because things change so quickly. So step 3 is track. So how do we do that on social media? Well, you could use Google Analytics. You can use the Insights function on Facebook. Social listening. You could have your own, or I'll give an example. Brand Watch is one. Typically, people pay for these. And Keyhole is another tool you can use. And so here's an example of a screenshot of a dashboard from Clipfolio. You could see for Facebook, I got 26,000 likes, 45,000 followers on Twitter, 6,500 on Instagram. And it gives you page impressions, engaged users, spreadsheet, or export into a spreadsheet, and keep track of it month to month. Now, for our project at the Right School, we use Hootsuite. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the dashboard from Hootsuite, where you can see some of our activity. And on Twitter, well, that's Facebook message, I believe they're on the right, and Instagram and Facebook. But anyway, you can see, so we can see the posts, what are scheduled, what are coming up, the ones that just ran. And if we go over to here and click on these bar charts, this bar chart icon, you will get metrics. So we could see some of those exciting metrics like the Clipfolio slide in front, except for we don't pay for that. We would have to upgrade, and we haven't managed to do that yet. So we have to do more digging to get our metrics. And this would be provided right here if we upgraded our package, but yeah, the budget's not allowing it at the moment. But you can see how easy it is. You could pick the metrics you want and report those. because you're going to have to report to the people that spend the money. Now, that's true in life and with social media marketing. So the last one is adjust. Right? You want to analyze and then revise, realign, and make your decisions for next month based on what you learned this month. What sort of posts worked right? What sort of activity level was good? And that's typically the last step in any process. And management, it's controlling, planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and then controlling. The last step of most any process is going to be to control or adjust. Because again, if it's important to you, you'll measure it. You'll look at it month over month. You'll make adjustments. If someone says that something is important, yet they don't measure it, it's really not that important. All right, so that finishes Chapter 11, Social Media Metrics, and I will see you on the internet.